Hi there, it's Ryan again from One Small Step with Youth Action. So today we're joined with Anastasia. Hi, Anastasia.
Yes. Hello.
So, how are you today?
I'm all good.
Do you want to tell us a wee bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Anastasia. I was involved with Youth Action as my placement, and as I'm a second year student in my community youth work degree, and I got involved in work with PPR. So I got involved in a campaign called Right to Work
Mm-hmm.
and 123GP. So it's all about fighting for the rights of mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever coronavirus came, I got very involved in the right to work, and having, my parents and having close ones work in low conditions have sort of reiterated the issue and the severeness of it.
Mm-hmm. What did you kind of do within your work, like with the campaign? Like, did you interview people or?
Yeah, so after, realizing how big of an issue it is so close to me, personally, I
Mm-hmm.
realized it would be so important to get the insight of actually people who are working in these conditions and how they are feeling. So I interviewed 3 people who worked in the likes of Moy Park, and then another person who I knew worked in Thompson's. And because of the coronavirus, the person who I interviewed for Thompson was left jobless with nothing, with a mortgage to pay off. And it sort of sparked in me sort of like, I want to fight against this. I want to get people's personal stories to help them and, stop this behavior of, companies just throwing people away like pieces of paper or something. So I decided that I will interview these people, and the way I done this was I contacted them and asked them if they'd be willing to give me some of their information, and
Mm-hmm.
just wrote up their pieces of stories, by asking questions. And some of the stories came out very powerful. Some people were actually scared for their own life, but some people had already, risk, say, the likes of asthma, slight asthma, but they still went to work because they were scared of being on £94 a week from having £300. So it was quite striking to see, how people were affected by this crisis, coronavirus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely some powerful stuff. So, like, what do you kind of, now that you've carried out these interviews and you've got their stories, what do you kind of hope to do with that going forward then?
So in the Right to Work campaign, where we're sort of, I was also involved with Maria Perkins. So she wrote an article. There's people who wrote articles against this, kind of name shaming
Mm,
these companies who actually treat people like this. And sometimes it was an article just about, because we also fought for a case of internet access for all. So
mm,
making sure that everybody had access to internet, because even with the likes of people losing jobs, some agencies weren't taking people. You could only do it online. So
mm,
that sort of came on as a knock-on effect. But with the likes of like Moy Park, every time, because I had someone who I knew, every week something new was happening. So the likes of, Moy Park tried to give chickens that were out of date, but making the workers feel like they're being gifted, but it was actually just loose stock just being given to them just so they keep quiet. So I think sort of both with the Right to Work campaign, we sort of decided we will actually name and shame these companies and what they're doing.
yeah.
And another person also talked about Randox, with the likes of coronavirus tests, selling them for £100 plus. So I think it was sort of, we took this information collectively and realized these companies need to be named and shamed.
Sorry, did you just say that they were selling the coronavirus tests for £100?
Yeah, yeah, they were planning to. So then also we tried to put a stop to this,
Yeah.
because they wanted to sell, and the tests weren't really that expensive, but Randox wanted to take advantage of the situation. They really were overpricing it. I'm not sure, it was something around 100, but it was probably twice or 3 times even more than they actually should have been.
Yeah, like it's ridiculous that do you know what I mean? That's
Somebody would have to pay for it.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
just the words. I'm literally lost for words right now. Like, it's kind of like disgusting almost, like, hearing that, there's people out there trying to make profit and gain still while people are,
Of these situations, yeah.
mhm. So like, are you planning on like continuing this like any further then, or like what do you do kind of?
So I'm still involved in the Right to Work campaign, and recently we've been meeting every few weeks. So I haven't been involved last week, but we're sort of still going on. We're trying to push something against them because something needs done.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a notice of one person died of coronavirus in Moy Park,
Mm-hmm.
and then now all of a sudden, from like being not caring about it, just letting the workers do whatever they want to actually, now if you're not social distancing, you get a warning, and if you get 2 warnings, you get kicked out of work. So they're trying to be do-gooders. They're trying to blind people, blind say the government and all, that they're being good, but actually inside it's a totally different thing that's happening. And it's a wee bit too late now, to put in social distancing, when all the restrictions are slowly easing, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's all done for, it's kind of like do-gooders, because whenever that one person died, everything, there was stuff being changed and everything. But before, it was sort of like just risk your own life, and there was corona cases happening very, very often in the workforce. So I think just something really needs done. And with the right to work campaign, I think we're gonna hopefully, fight for better conditions of working, and especially it's not when you're, working in such a low wage. Also, you're risking your whole life for something, for a small wage, but people need it to survive. And I'm also within Moy Park, it's very often that people are also migrants. So I'm personally Polish too. So
Mm-hmm.
my parents are, so it is the same, the low skilled jobs. But now all of a sudden, they were heroes because they're working, but before it was never appreciated. But also, so I think now they're just sort of blinding it by, gifting them and giving out warnings if you're not social distancing. And then when people see it, or they think, oh, they're good, but actually inside, a very different story is happening.
Yeah. So, like, what kind of like I know you were sort of saying about you've got personal sort of connections to it and stuff like that, but it
Yeah,
must have been an easy sort of like, because very often a lot of us in our everyday lives, we do kind of hear or see sort of injustice and stuff like that, but it can take a lot to kind of, speak out or do something to speak out about it or give voice to the ones that don't have the voice. So like, how did you kind of overcome that, or did you, how did you kind of go about that process then?
I think just being involved in the right to work campaign with PPR, it was something I always knew my parents worked there. The conditions weren't the greatest, but it was something you just sort of went, oh, okay. You weren't really aware to it, but being involved in right to work, and then also the likes of coronavirus, the crisis, just shows, really enlightened to me, that something needs to be changed. It just can't be happening. People are risking their life, and especially the likes of people who aren't perhaps locals, and might have migrated here. They feel like they can't do better, and they just stick and stay quiet because they're scared for their family. A wage is a wage at the end of the day. It keeps them living, pays their bills and all. So it's sort of, I feel like before I just was like, oh, it's just the way it is. But now, being involved in this campaign and hearing other people's stories really enlightened to me that this is a big problem and
Mm.
something needs to be changed about it.
Definitely, like it's disgusting to even think that that's what I'm saying. Like, never mind just with coronavirus happening and stuff like that, but
Yeah,
for that to happen in this day and age to anyone is, absolutely appalling and stuff like that. So, like,
yeah.
so have you, so you've done like interviews and stuff like that, and you're doing stuff with right
Work campaign. Yeah.
right to work campaign, sorry. Would you think about like, maybe trying to get like your research published or something? Like,
I think it would be really interesting, maybe get the platform to publish, an article, and actually, even more than name shame, actually write the experiences of what they feel like. And that, I also think that's what also PPR, I think they shared a few of the stories that we gathered, because I definitely had a few more also, because I also live in a small town of Portadown, where
mm,
there is loads of factories, and we do have a very high population of, Polish, East Timor, and a lot of people. These factories are bung with people, and they all, these factories, all they care about is just people. People treating people like machines.
mm-hmm.
Not actually their health. Nothing else. So I think it would definitely be good, and the likes of PPR publishing those stories, I think, is definitely something moving, and
Yeah,
people will realize.
and not just their physical health, but also that mental health. Like that would
Yeah,
take that would take a lot for someone to have to go in and stuff like that. With the fear of catching this, and especially if you've got a family and stuff. like what did your parents think about your research and stuff like that? Like, have you heard any feedback yet about any of it, or?
Well, my parents found it really interesting, but they sort of were blinded by the, they just thought it was just normal.
Mm,
They would say, "Oh, I don't like my park and all," but a job, they just used to think it's my job. I can't change it. But actually being seen, like actually what all is happening, and there's no empathy towards the workers. There's nothing like, "I feel you, okay, I understand you." It's just, you're practically just a machine to produce chickens or something. It's
mm,
nothing like there's like no feelings. And I sort of made them a wee bit angry. But then again, there's also that language barrier. So they're sort of like, they're scared of change because, you go into another place, okay, Moy Park might be bad, but they've got a full-time job, it's stable. So
mm,
it's that fear, and sometimes their English is okay, but in certain places they're scared, And I think it's that sort of moment where they just feel like they're stuck. And
yeah.
even when it's bad, they get angry and all, but they're like, this is my job. I'm scared of change. I'm scared of what someone doesn't want me. And I think it's also, you know my parents always say, it's because we're Polish, it might be harder for us. So I think that's also stereotype is still maybe around. They just think personally they can't do better.
Yes, there's some really great stuff coming from the story and stuff like that. Like as like part of the one small step and stuff like that. Like we try to talk to young people and stuff like that who are carrying out these amazing tasks. And like this is genuinely like the sort of first time I'm hearing about this, and I
Yeah,
am completely blown away. Like like that would take some nerve. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, or like some sort of like inner strength to actually see a problem and
I
actually do something about
want to.
it.
Yeah.
So like definitely, like what would you say to sort of encourage any other like young people or people that sort of see something like that going on, some sort of injustice going on, you know how would you encourage, what would you say to encourage them, if you would, like how does it feel
for
like?
young for young people, I think it would be interesting. Even the like of, there's a lot of, I know people, people from different backgrounds. Even when you see your family struggling, I think it's great to speak out. Even speak to the likes of your, even if they spoke to youth action, and got involved with youth, and you could maybe direct them to the likes of PPR. Actually, I think it's nice to take a step back and not appreciate, but realize all the injustices that are actually present. And there's so many of them. And I know myself, even getting involved with right to work before, I was blinded to it. But when
Yeah.
you take a step back and you actually read some articles too, you realize how much of a big issue, and personally in your own personal life, it is to even the likes of your parents. So
Mhm.
I just think for young people, definitely, if you see an injustice, tell someone.
Yep.
And especially with the likes of youth organizations, and I know youth action, they always will fight for what's right for the rights of young people. And I think, it's definitely always think that you should tell someone, even if it's your parents or even someone who can also make a change.
Yep. Couldn't
And
agree
a
with
change
you.
is possible. Even I know some young people may think that they can't, but you can always promote it's exactly like one small step. It takes
Mhm.
a small step into into this injustice. You might not thoroughly change it very quickly, but it's small steps, and the small steps that count.
Couldn't agree with you more, to be honest. I hope to be hearing more from you in the future and stuff like that. Like, I do think the sky's the limit. Just the last kind of question I was just kind of thinking of is like, would you maybe do then something like in the sense of profession, like maybe reporting or like journalism, like kind of highlight these, do you know what I mean? Or like,
Yeah, I definitely, I always, even I don't really do much reporting on now, but if I was ever asked, I definitely would.
mhm,
And I sort of, I also think of, race, coming from a different background is another one. It's an injustice that I've been, always. And I think one thing personally, a small step to me is always challenge these, challenge people's, people's mindset on, for example, the workforce, for example, because people think it's a low skilled jobs, but actually think back of what they have to go through. So I think it's all just these small, and once again, it just reiterates your campaign. It is small steps that count. And I definitely would write a raw article, but definitely that's for, maybe the future when I actually have more things. But these small steps of actually getting involved and, getting people's stories are definitely major for some, for people the likes of like right to work campaign.
Thank you so much for that, Anastasia. Like, thank you for sharing your one small step and stuff. And like for everyone listening, like I am completely blown away right now, to be honest. Like, so like it's nice to because like it's kind of thing that kind of comes up with because with the news and stuff like that, you know, you only sort of see one side of things and it's usually quite negative. So hearing that, you know, there are people like yourself out there who are willing to sort of take a stand, you know, and do a wee small like do your one small step in the kind of trying to fix things or bring it to people's attentions. Honestly, like, you know, words escape me right now. Like, so I do think
Thank you.
the sky's the limit and stuff like that. So yeah, thank you, and thank you everyone for listening and stuff like that. So hopefully see you again soon.
Okay.